We're excited. We feel good about where we are right now. Obviously, we've played pretty well over the last couple of months, but the key for us has honestly been just to continue to get better, right? We want to make adjustments. We want to be sure that the things that we're not doing well or that we could do a little bit better, that we're shoring up. So even the time that we've had this week, we've really spent trying to be very competitive, to keep ourselves in game mode and to continue to compete, but also to just work on one or two little things, some wrinkles and some things that we know we've got to be a little bit better at when we step on the floor on Saturday.
Coach, speaking of the season, talk about the beginning. Obviously 2-6, had losses to Belmont Abbey, and just talk about in UNC Pembroke. And obviously it seemed like kind of change on a dime just right after that. What was just the biggest key, or can you point to one or two things that really kind of helped this team turn the corner right then?
Well, one of the things that we've talked a lot about is that every team has an identity, and I think that at that point in the year, I think that Pembroke and Belmont Abbey probably were a little bit better at what they do than we were at what we do, and I think we had to at some point settle into who we were. We're very good in transition. We talk a lot, if you listen to us on the sidelines, we talk a lot about tempo and the pace that we play at. And then we had to lock in on defense. We had to decide that we were going to be a team that played on both sides of the ball. We've got a lot of kids that can score. We've got kids that can put the ball in the basket. We run pretty good offense most nights. But we've got to step in and really settle into being a good team on the defensive side of the ball, getting stops, rebounding, doing the things that we need to do on the defensive side of the ball to get wins against teams that are also good offensively. And I think once we settled into that mindset, it really kind of flipped the script for us and turned things around.
Okay. Was that kind of a game-by-game process, or did they kind of take that pretty quickly after the couple of losses there?
Well, I think you can't really stop on a dime, but I think that it was a gradual process. We understood in the moment, I think, what we needed, but I think what this team has done has been to progressively get better. So I think if people that have watched us over January and then into February have probably seen us adjust, make some adjustments on both sides of the ball, and try to shore some things up from one game to the next. There may have been a game that we didn't defend the dribble penetration very well. There may have been games that we didn't slide over and help very well, or games that we didn't rebound well. So we try to evaluate ourselves after every game, figure out what we can do better, how we can be better, and then we take that to the floor in the next game. And hopefully people that have followed us for the last couple of months have seen that improvement just kind of measured over each game.
Obviously, went on a tremendous streak, which lasts until right now. But during that streak, it's one of those things where consistency has kind of got to be the big thing, because if you have a bad game here or there, you can end up falling on the short end. What was just kind of the consistency? Was that kind of one of the biggest things that was really impressive, from your perspective, that your team was able to do during this?
Yeah, that's where the individual stuff becomes important, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as a team, when you play and coach a team sport, you realize that most people are looking at the big picture and they're looking at the finished product. Mm-hmm. What most people don't get to see, honestly, is the work that these kids put in individually. In the court, on the court, 2-3 days a week with our assistant coaches, getting shots up, working on the individual aspects of their game that they know we need them to be good at night in and night out. And so if there's one thing that I feel like we can be really proud of as a group, is the individual work that these kids have put in on their own time, working it around their class schedules, continuing to do the work in the classroom, but getting up sometimes 8 o'clock in the morning to come in and spend 30 minutes on the court individually with an assistant and get some shots up and do some work. I think that as individuals have gotten better and gotten more confident, that's where people have seen the consistency in our group as a whole. And so, you really do, as a coach, you want to spend as much time as you can talking about the individual aspect and the hard work that these kids have put in on their own individually, because that, I think, is what makes the consistency that we've needed in terms of what we're getting with the group as a whole right now.
How rewarding too was it to see it, especially towards the end of it, where the streak was, going up, but you knew you were going to get a lot of teams, best shots, and it seemed like every game was kind of going with a dogfight for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, that's a mindset that I think that we had to settle into, right? Is you don't necessarily always realize how your opponent views you, right? We spend so much time with our scout and our prep, and we're working on the next game and getting ready for the next team and their strengths and weaknesses. And we don't really stop always to think about how we're being viewed. And I think that over these last maybe 2 or 3 games, it's become very apparent to us that people are prepping and people are stepping on the floor, giving us their absolute best shot every night. And that means that we can't take games off, quarters off, possessions off. Like, we've got to step on the floor every moment for 40 minutes inside those lines and make sure that we're doing things well. Or obviously, you know, people are going to use those opportunities to catch us and try to run by us. So I think when we kind of settled into that mindset and became a little bit more aware of how we're viewed, I think it helped us. It helped our focus a little bit and helped us to step on the floor with maybe a little bit even more of an aggressive mindset than we had up to that point.
Heading in now to the conference tournament, had a little bit of time off. Has that been good in some ways and bad in others? I know the girls were trying to, chomping at the bit to kind of get back out there. So what's the break been like?
Yeah, I think it's always a positive. Like, we want to play, so we can say maybe that's a little bit of a negative because we've been off now for about a week. But at the end of the day, it's February, March. Everybody's got some bangs and some bruises. Some little nagging things that if you get that week, you can actually take a little bit of time and get a little bit of rest, get off your feet, get some rehab, get a chance to step back, watch some film, some things that you just really don't have an opportunity to do when you're playing 2 and sometimes 3 games a week. So we're using it completely as a positive. We've been on the court every day this week. Practices have been going really well. I think the mindset, the anticipation obviously is building. And we're excited about what's in front of us coming up on Saturday. But at the end of the day, the time off is a blessing. Like, anybody that says it's not, it's just because we want to play. But we see it as a major positive and giving us an opportunity to really just kind of take a step back and have a little bit more time to prepare than we typically have when we're in the middle of a season, when we're playing a couple games a week.
Kind of with that said, though, as soon as you get on the court, for the game, it's going to be at least 1 or 2 very, very good opponents that you're going to face. So you kind of have to, be at your A game right at the beginning, basically.
Absolutely. And again, to me, that's another positive of having a full week. We know that we're going to see 1 of 2 opponents. Their styles are actually drastically different in terms of the way that they play. So it's given us 3 or 4 or 5 days that we can actually just step on the court and work on a little bit of everything, right? We've kind of gone back to the drawing board and worked on some things that we haven't had time to work on in our own game. One of the things that we learned as we started to make this run is that as much as it's important to scout and be prepared for the opponent, we've got to be as good as we can be at what we do. And so when you've got a full week to prepare, obviously it gives you time to rehearse and work on whatever's coming in terms of that next opponent. But it also gives you some really valuable time to just work on things that we've got to be better at and things that we know we've got to do well heading into the weekend. So we've used the week that way to continue to work on us and continue to focus on ourselves. And obviously we feel excited and we feel like we'll be ready to go when we step on the court on Saturday afternoon.